everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I'm your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you this week? How's everybody doing? You know, the world is opening up slowly, at least here in Montana. We have lots of other places that are still staying closed because of the COVID pandemic. And actually, I think that's a pretty good idea. We have a lot less people here in Montana, so they are slowly opening businesses and they're still enforcing social distancing here. And certain businesses, the very last to open were gyms, and my wife has a gym, of course, so that's opening today. So they're just kind of trying to roll it out, and our governor is keeping an eye on the different particular, if you want to call it infectious rates, of course, and if they start to go up, they're going to close everything back down again. Yet we're trying to open up slowly, and people are getting a little stir crazy, and here in Montana, we have a great amount of space around us, so the national parks are opening. Well, not all of them. There is one entrance to Yellowstone that is opening now, and I believe that's in June 1st. That's going to happen of 2020. Of course, today is May 15th of 2020, and today they are opening up the Custer National Forest here. So just trying to allow people to get outside and experience some of that tremendous, beautiful outdoor stuff that we love in Montana. And of course, we need to do that safely because we don't want to respike the numbers. Now, this gets really rough because we're trying to be conscientious in a time frame where we are the stewards of one another. You know, we are our brother's keeper. And we've been seeing exercises in consciousness out there where all of these different modalities of thought have collided, and people have stormed Capitol buildings with their guns and demanded that the parks open and all of this crazy stuff. And I had to laugh. I've got a very good friend on Facebook, which I'm not on anymore. Really, I've had my assistant, I have a media assistant, and I've had my media assistant posting different things to that platform that I've written up, just because I don't want to be in it as much. But before I got off of Facebook, and again, if you see Facebook posts that are made there, my media assistant is putting those up, and I'm having a chance to write those, off-site. However, before I got off of Facebook, I had a really good friend. I still have this good friend. This is a good person. We have very differing ideologies about things. And this individual was putting up memes about, I'm not going to live in fear. It's my God-given freedom to, carry my gun. And I'm not going to live in fear and wear a mask because it kept going back to masks and guns. And then I saw another meme before I got off of Facebook that just made me laugh. And the meme was, if wearing a mask is living in fear, WTF is carrying a gun. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed because that is exactly the exercise in consciousness that we're in right now. It's a statement on what scares you. For some people, that's getting a horrifically infectious disease and dying of it. For other people, it's you can't go to the park and I'm going to restrict your gun usage. It's hysterical. Fear is fear. And when we try to label one person's fear as more important or greater than another person's fear, we're kind of missing the point that fear is fear. And so though I have had my own difficulty understanding why large groups of people would view trying to protect public health as a stripping of their rights, because I see the layers underneath of that. I see how disempowered many of those people have felt over their lifetime. And I see all of the other pain that's involved in that decision to make them storm a Capitol with a gun. And I also see all the propaganda that they've been fed to really, truly believe that if they don't become the militia to save America, that the America's going to go to hell in a handbasket. I've had my own struggles with how this could be possible that someone would follow that thought process. However, what's been shown to me over and over again is that no matter what my personal struggle is, understanding that fear is fear, okay? Fear is fear. And after I get done with my little human moments of, WTF is that? And I'm sure they're looking at me with my mask on going, WTF is that? And to go back to my friend on Facebook who would look at my posts and think, wow, you're really living in fear about this pandemic. And I'm thinking, well, no, I just have members of my family that work in the medical community and I'm looking at some science here and it's kind of ugly. Yet for them, what scares them worse than dying of a disease is the claustrophobic thought of having their freedom taken away. And generally, those are folks who, to some degree or another in their life, have had their freedoms taken away. Maybe they were children and they were oppressed by something, a heavy parent, a religious doctrine, something that frightened them and had their range of motion intellectually, psychologically, and spiritually limited in some way to create a fear of a loss of freedom. I mean, all of our fears are really based in something not only in our genome, yet in our experiences. So I may not understand that fear because my life has not been limited in that way. I'm so blessed that I did not grow up with hideous abuse or neglect or heavy religious doctrines or anything that would create that fear of being restricted in me. I have watched people die of terrible diseases, and perhaps that's where my fear seed would grow as per example, okay? So the reason I'm leading out with this today in our podcast is because what we're talking about today is how to be interconnected, how to make this beautiful interconnected world through the quantum field and not even have to use the internet to do it. So why the hell would I be talking about fear for the first 6 minutes of this podcast if what we're talking about is making an interconnected world? Well, let me tell you, one of the things that knocks our Bluetooth offline in terms of being a collective, emotionally connected or telepathically connected race and species is fear. Fear is the great divider. And I'm tired of hearing how we shouldn't talk about fear. It puts too much scope on fear. We put people in the mindset of fear if we talk about fear. Well, that's kind of bullcrap to a degree, because if I'm trying to teach someone how not to get attacked by a bear, it's important that I talk about bears. And it's important I talk about the difference in black bear behavior and the difference between grizzly bear and brown bear behavior. Those bears act very differently. And boy, is my collective consciousness open to all the people who are going to be flooding the mountains right now and all the bears who are down in those campgrounds. So if you are in the Rocky Mountain West and you're hearing this podcast, please be careful, because our bear activity, apparently just in from the angel who walks with the world, is going to be heightened this summer. So just be on the lookout, okay? Please string your food up in trees and do not pack them in your tent, in your camper, or in your car. Moving along. So if I'm going to talk about being attacked by a bear, then I need to talk about bears. So what we're talking about here is fear, and how fear breaks the circuitry through our interconnective human Bluetoothed web. Now, one of my big passions at this point in my life is to talk about how the human species can connect with one another without having to get online. This is a thing. Okay? And it's not just a thing some people can do. You are a human being. Okay? I don't care if this is your first life as a human being. I don't care if you're an incarnate angel, elemental, alien, ET, whatever you are, or just a good old garden variety human being like the rest of us. If you are wearing a flesh suit, you are subject to every single bit of physics in the third dimension. Okay? So first of all, go into acceptance with that. Now, moving to the next phase of that. That can be a bummer to certain degrees. However, depending on the engine that you're running inside of the flesh suit, depending on what you've wrapped that body around, depending on the willingness for you to engage certain aspects of your soul, your spirit, whatever your ingredients are that you've wrapped in that flesh, okay, wherever you came from. This is what dictates how strong your Bluetooth signal is going to be. Okay, so I want you to think about your soul the energy that runs your body, if folks have a hard time with the word soul, but we're just going to use the word soul so we can cut some time off this podcast. I want you to think about the energy in your body, your soul, as your internet router, okay? And that internet router, if we go to Best Buy, say, or some store, big box store, and we buy a router, one of the first things we do is we look on the side of the box to see how strong the signal is. Now, most people, if you're buying a router, are trying to usually cast that internet signal all throughout a home. And are you ready for this? The average size of an American home, according to somebody, and I don't know who this is because clearly they've never lived in Montana, is 4,000 square feet. That is supposedly the average size of an American home. Now, the home that my wife and my daughter and I live in is not even half that. We have a small footprint. We went from a 4,800 square foot house in Bozeman, Montana, where we lived for almost a year, back to our little, I think we're about maybe 1,700 square feet in our house, if we're counting both the upstairs and downstairs. So we limited our footprint on the earth. And for the three of us, this is enough space. I mean, honestly. So why do I bring this up? Well, the router I'm going to buy for a home like this is going to be not as heavy. I'm not going to blast that much EMF out than if I'm trying to route the internet through a giant 4,800 square foot home. So I want you to think about your soul as a router. Now, unlike going to a big box store and having to purchase a router that has a set broadcast weight to it, we can adjust our broadcast weight of our own router, of our energetic self, of our soul at any time. We can limit it, or we can really open it up to reach hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, millions, billions of miles. That is up to us. How we want to set the strength of our router. Now, do keep in mind, when we up our router strength, that also means that we are going to receive from all of these different other routers that are going to be online to that degree as well. So it kind of reminds me of back in the old days. Back in the old days when we were doing audio recording, I was signed to record labels. And when I first started recording, we recorded to what was called 2-inch tape. It was a cake of tape, and it was magnetic tape. And lots of you listening understand what this is. But for those of you that are listening that came along in the digital era, these were cakes of tape that actually got stuck on a machine, and there was a ribbon of tape that went through the machine, and it was about 2 inches wide, and you could put 24 tracks onto that 2-inch wide tape. And you had to what was called punching in and punching out. You had to be a very good musician because you had to go right into a phrase and fix it and write out again. And you couldn't just create endless digital tracks and dump the ones you didn't want. You had to go over the top of, on a physical device, that exact track. Well, why am I talking about recording? Because when we went from that system to the digital realm, then we started doing something called sampling. And you could take all of that audio and you could sample it to be a 44.1 kilohertz MP3. And now we've got 48.1 kilohertz MP3s and AAC files and a million other things. But back then, if you sampled something to be half of that at only 22 kilohertz, then you took out a bunch of its sound. So you couldn't make it be 44K. It had to stay at 22K. It was a degraded signal back then. Why am I explaining it this way? Because if you go into your soul and you set your router to only broadcast, say, to all of those out there who are, say, broadcasting at that 22 kilohertz signal, then that's going to be the broadcast signal that you're picking up. That is the ceiling. It's called the ceiling. That is the ceiling of the signal you're going to pick up. Now, why am I talking about this? Because we as human beings have not set our internal routers to really go clear up to 48 kilohertz. We've set them at like 1.2 kilohertz. So we're only broadcasting and receiving most of the time, maybe in a 3 to 5 foot bubble around ourselves. Okay? Now, if you're somebody that sets your sample rate, if you set your broadcast rate in your own soul to be, and again, I'm talking two different things. I'm talking sound sampling, which is a little different than actual router broadcast ratios. So just go with me here for a minute. If I set my sample rate to be 48.1, that means that I can hear everything from 48, I can hear that 22 kilohertz bandwidth. I can hear everything below 48, okay? I can hear everything below that. And I can keep sampling up. If I set my sample rate to 108 or 132 or 332 megabytes per second, whatever it is, the higher I set my sample rate, I'm going to hear everything below that. So if I go into my soul and I'm trying to open up my internal Bluetooth, my energetic Bluetooth that allows me to connect with the rest of the world through my flesh body, because my flesh body is a giant saltwater bag that works as a conductor. So if I set my internal router way high, say to 48 kilohertz, I can hear everybody below that. I can connect with far greater frequencies than just 3 feet outside of myself. Are you kind of getting what I'm laying down here? Because basically what I'm trying to explain here is if you're in a human body, your body works as an electromagnetic semiconductor. Your body works as an antenna. And your soul, the energetic source that fuels you, regardless of its origin, regardless of its spiritual DNA, it has a broadcast capacity, just like your cell phone does. Okay, your cell phone has a battery in it, and that allows it to transmit a signal to be picked up by a tower, which amplifies the signal and blasts it out to everybody else. Now, humanity, we as a collective group of people, we as a collective group, we are the broadcast tower. And the more of us that come online, the easier it is for all of us to send signals through the ethers, through our own personal routers, which is the energy in the body or our soul, okay? That energy, if we learn how to open it up and we learn how to, we're not on analog anymore. We're not taking our thoughts and ideas and gluing them to cakes of tape 2-inch wide that go on a shelf and are stuck somewhere in a record label vault. We're able to take those thoughts and feelings and digitalize them, just like they did MP3s back in the day. And then we're able to share those digitalized versions of our thoughts, our feelings, our intellect. We're able to share that through a Bluetooth capacity that is the broadcast radius of the human soul or spirit. We call it telepathy. We call it elevated collective consciousness. And we're able to do that by settling into the body and using the body as a broadcast mechanism, because salt water is one of the most, if not the most effective mechanisms on the planet Earth to conduct electromagnetic energy. Are you following? Okay, so that's how I just tied all that together. So one of the things that I really want to work on in these podcasts, and I've been chipping away at this. Oh God, this is episode, what is this? 93? I hope I didn't get that wrong. However, one of the things that we're going to be working on here in this podcast is talking about how do we open up this huge, massive broadcast ability to not have to be on the internet. How do we do that? Because I'll tell you, there's going to be some changes that we're going to be having coming up in our internet. Thank you. Yes, it is. This is episode 93. I've just had my people just confirm that here, so we're good. Thanks, guys. One of the things I can tell you is that as we go along and as humanity begins to awaken into our capacity to connect with one another, there will be people out there, gang, who are going to want to try to control the messaging. And right now, everybody's going to the internet to look things up. Now, I'm not suggesting a huge conspiracy theory. This is pretty well known that for the last couple of years, Congress has been trying to pass a bill that would allow throttling or the control of internet speeds depending on how much a person paid for the speed. So somebody like Amazon could pay top dollar and you could just surf their website like you normally would with no problem. Say a little guy like me, I couldn't pay that top dollar. So when you try to get on my website, it takes forever to load. It could potentially take forever to book an appointment. That's how they can control, or have been trying to control, the flow of information, is who pays for how much bandwidth that's being used. Well, this bill keeps getting kicked out, thank God. However, the more people get desperate to try to control messaging to humanity, the more they're going to try to control the internet. And we've got some stuff coming up here. I'm not going to focus a ton on it right now. That's going to make that challenging. China already sees huge controls over what comes through their internet. And we're seeing different censoring through Google already, through the State Department and other, Department of National Security and whatnot, as far as taking down UFO videos. We've been seeing that for years and years. So the reason I'm talking about how to expand our own personal router to connect with humanity without going on the internet is we don't actually need the internet. Okay? How do y'all think I do my job? With these angels, with off-worlders, with being able to look into different capacities of the universe, timelines, multiverses. It's certainly not by going to the internet, okay? And as much as I appreciate the tremendously beautiful sections of feedback that I get from all of you guys about how much I help, and I love that and thank you, and I'm here to help, that's what I'm here to do. Yet I'm not unique in my ability to do this. I just, for some reason, found it easier to do. I don't know, whatever. But I'm here to help you understand how you can turn this on in yourself also. Because if we all get this same capacity going to be able to connect with everything around us, then the people who are trying to force messages on us that are untrue, that are based in fear, because fear shuts down the mechanism of connection. And if you don't think the fearmongers out there know that, I got something else coming to you here. They know. I mean, all world militaries, gang, study the brain. All world militaries study how we interconnect with one another. And why does that happen? Why do jellyfish that don't even have a brain that we can identify, how do they group think together to be able to work in a mass, to be able to corral food for one another? How do they warn each other of issues coming? And I can tell you how they do that because I've talked to jellyfish. I've had full-on conversation with moon jellies. I've got them tattooed on my stomach. Moon jellies are cool. They are working on a vibrational language that, all those little phalanges, all those little legs they have, they're tiny, tiny, tiny. And they all vibrate according to messages that these beings are getting. And the being's cells, they don't need a big collective brain to figure it out for the rest of their body. We talk about jellyfish as if they are this lesser than creature because they have less guts than we do. Quite frankly, they are more evolved than we are because they don't require all the guts, and they also don't require a brain because each cell is so keyed in to the truth of their existence that they can just feel it in the water, resonate it to their other beings, and the other beings can resonate back, and they don't even question it. And quite honestly, I think that's evolution. But anyway, enough about my adoration for jellyfish. So we can speak vibrationally to one another. And we do this, like I said, there's other beings on this planet that are in salt water that do it all the time. And you look at a jellyfish, and most of its body is water. So how do we do it? How do we do it, gang? How do we boost our internet signal within each other to speak with each other, to understand what's actually going on in the world? Well, you can start with some really basic exercises here. And we talk about meditation. We talk about silencing the brain. We talk about getting the brain to stop spinning, all of this stuff. That is certainly one way to do it. And I don't want you to be intimidated by that information. Because one of the things that happens when we start talking about sending and receiving internet signals through the body or through the soul to one another on the planet, because we are these conductive beings, we get overwhelmed with that idea because we've been taught that only superheroes do that, or only psychics do that, or only angel translators do that. Well, that's horse crap. We all do that. If you are in a human body, which we all are, except for maybe just a handful of beings that come down and incarnate to do jobs and leave. Most of us listening to this podcast, 99.9% of us are in a human body. And that human body knows how to Bluetooth through vibration. It's in our DNA. It's in the lower rungs of our DNA that we call junk DNA. It's stored in there in the same way that a jellyfish can communicate through vibration, through its little bitty tentacles, and pick up the most infinitesimal vibrational language, just like honeybees do. We do the same thing. Yet we go, and we talk and we talk and we talk, and we don't listen to the vibration. We listen to the words. So, how do we open up our giant Bluetooth? How do we do this? Well, one of the first things that you can do is go out in your backyard. First of all, you've got to remember, I got this angel helping me with this tutorial for you guys, and this angel's looking at me like, you are jumping the gun, sister. Back the hell up. So we're going to back up. One of the reasons that we as human beings have a hard time trusting our gut is A, we've been told not to, B, we've been told somebody's smarter than we are, and C, we have DNA in us that tells us not to listen to our gut through generations of programming and training to only listen to the prefrontal cortex. So first and foremost, give yourself a big damn break, okay? If this concept just doesn't click right in with you, you're not broken. You are working against hundreds, if not thousands of years of programming to not pay attention to your base design. Now, the good news about that is that we can absolutely overwrite the programming, because also within our DNA is the base code, is the core code in how to actually Bluetooth with the rest of the planet and with each other. That core code is within every single cell in your body. That also is in your DNA. So this overwritten portion of our DNA, which is don't listen to yourself, only think, oh my God, you're going to be in trauma if your brain isn't engaged. Ugh. That's there too. But there are several strands of DNA below that that are made to work on vibrational frequency only. So just know that you are front-loaded with code in your body to do what I'm about to explain to you, okay? You're front-loaded with code. So the first thing we have to do is teach our body. I just checked with this angel. I'm like, are we good? Can we go forward? This angel's like, yes, thank you. You may go forward. So now, how do we teach ourselves to pick this up out there, to know that we're Bluetoothed with something else besides ourselves? Now, you got to remember, we're in a human body. The human body is the broadcast mechanism for the spirit. It is the amplifier, okay? And whenever we're dealing with a third dimensional aspect, we need some sort of third dimensional amplifier to run the signal through so that it can be translated through that same dimension. In other words, if I want to send a signal through a wire, I need miles of wire because I'm sending a signal through that third dimensional aspect. If I want to send, now this is where this gets really cool. If I want to send a signal through the air, okay, say I don't need a wire. So we're going to start with the wire capacity, and then we're going to go to the tower capacity where we send a signal through the air and have two towers catch it. And then we're going to move up to what happens when we don't even need a tower. What do we use if there's no third dimensional tower? What defines the tower? So we have to go in stages, and I have exactly half an hour to explain all of this. So here we go. Here it is, people. So we need to, first of all, train ourselves to understand what it feels like. The body is a bag of receptors, of nerves and chemicals, and that's what communicates to the spirit how well we're doing on this sending and receiving exercise with our Bluetooth wireless router inside of us that's called our soul, our spirit, okay? So first and foremost, we have to teach the body what it feels like to send and receive a signal. So it knows what the hell it's looking for, right? I mean, how are you supposed to train yourself to do anything if you don't know what it feels like. I mean, that would be like me just saying, okay, go pick up that weight and lift it over your head without showing you the proper form for that so you don't blow out a disc. All right? So here's what we're going to do. So go outside. The biggest transmitter that we have in our third dimension of energy, our biggest transmitter of energy is the mother planet, is Earth. Earth is constantly pumping messages and energy through everything, and Earth is our biggest cell tower of all. We walk on it every day. Our houses are built on it. We do separate the soles of our feet from the earth oftentimes with a rubber substance, which cuts us off from the earth because rubber busts the groove of electromagnetic connection, right? It's an insulator. So here's what you do. So as we come into this time frame of the weather being better, you go barefoot and stand in the grass, not on, guys, I know, sometimes grass is weird and it's got microbes in it, but just go for it. Stand in the grass and put your hand on a tree. Now, you're going to feel kind of like a hippy-dippy person doing this, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with being a little hippy-dippy through this experience. Stick your hand on that tree and don't think. Just feel. And give yourself about 60 seconds to get out of that prefrontal cortex that's saying, why am I standing barefoot touching a tree? This tree isn't talking to me. This tree isn't giving me anything. Because you have to remember too, with especially our consumerist culture in America, we've been trained that we have to be receiving all the time. We got to get. And we're trained to receive that through very loud, blasting electromagnetic mechanisms like a television or watching constant YouTube videos or talking to somebody with text or input. So we're going to dial that back a bit. So stand barefoot and touch that tree and just close your eyes. Now your brain, because we've trained our brains to seek like a police scanner, to seek stimulation, you got to give your brain something to do. Otherwise, this exercise gets too hard and too weird, especially for folks who are not used to meditation, okay? So where you go next is you're touching that tree. Just start listening. Give your brain the task of listening. I'm going to listen to every single thing around me. Because again, we've trained our brains generationally that it has to be doing something or we can't rest. So you're kind of tricking your brain into giving you a break. So your brain's job is to just listen and close your eyes. And while your brain is listening, don't take your hand off that tree. Give yourself a few minutes there. It might happen in 10 seconds. It might happen in 5 minutes. There's no wrong answer. To just feel what happens in your chest. Your heart chakra is going to be the indicator to you that router is beginning to come online, okay? You will feel that warmth in your chest first because our connection with the mother planet is through the heart and through the root chakra. So, I mean, that's why, we give birth. People used to have sex in the dirt to receive the greatest blessing for their children coming in because they understood that we were pulling this energy from the ground. And, all of that entry of energy into the back, especially with chakral points, can be powerful. People used to have sex trying to stand up or squat on the earth in ancient religions to bring that energy up through the chakras of the feet. So the chakra in our chest and our root chakra are the biggies that indicate to us that our online router is working, okay? So while you're standing there barefoot, you got your hand on the tree and you're letting your brain listen, that's the task. Just begin to take bigger breaths through your nose. It doesn't have to be something you're like, okay, taking big breaths. It's not that. Just let it naturally occur. And when you breathe, I want you to picture breathing in through your nostrils. You're going to go through your sinus cavities. You're going to breathe through the very top of your skull. I want you to think of a tube that goes up your nose, through your face, all the way across the very top of your skull, all like a football helmet, all the way down the back of your neck, down your spine, and into your pelvis. Not your chest, but your pelvis. So when you take that breath through your nose, I want your pelvis to expand. You're breathing into your pelvis. You're going to breathe right down there into that root chakra. Okay? And you're probably thinking, that sounds weird, but actually your diaphragm is low in your stomach. And when we take a breath all the way down our back into our pelvis, it oxygenates the blood differently. It creates more electromagnetic energy in the blood, and it fuels that chakra that connects to all things. So while you're letting your brain listen, while you're barefoot, touching the tree, all these things, you're just listening, let that happen for about 30, 45 seconds, 1 minute, and just begin to just one big old breath into the pelvis and just hold it for a second and release. And just play with that for maybe half a minute, 45 seconds, all right? So just play with that. And pretty soon, it's kind of awkward at first, and you're going to feel kind of weird maybe at first if you're not somebody who maybe doesn't practice yoga. Yeah, just do it until it doesn't feel weird. And then just kind of let your body just be in this space. You will feel that chest open up. That's your body showing you, hey, my Bluetooth is online. It's kind of like, have you ever booted a router after you've got to restart your modem, right? I hate it when I have to do this. And you got to unplug everything, and then the modem takes the 1 blinky light, and then the 2 blinky lights, and the 3 blinky lights. Finally, the modem comes on. And then you turn on your router. And the router's doing its thing, and 1 blinky light is happening, and 2 blinky lights are happening. I want you to think about this process in the exact same way. Because that's exactly what's going on. We don't just turn on the modem and the router and it all comes online and we're cool. Everything has to warm up and catch the signal. We are no different. We have literally created our technology in our image, in how it works. It's amazing. So you're standing there, you go through your little breathy cycle for maybe 45 seconds, whatever. Now, when you feel that chest open up, you may feel it in your chest, you may feel it in your tummy, the sacral chakra. That's who you are in the world. You may feel it way low. You may feel it in your pelvis. You may feel it right there in that root chakra. Wherever you feel it, it doesn't matter. However, many people, the heart is the first one to go. So if that's not your first one, don't panic. Now, once it opens up, it will feel like this rush of peace. It's subtle, man. It's subtle. Okay? You'll just feel peaceful all of a sudden. And what you've done is you've tapped in to that internet signal, that intranet, that inter-earth signal. What's what we're going to call it? And now you're online. So you're feeling the tree. You're feeling the ground. And guess what? That feels freaking peaceful. If you think for 1 second Mother Earth is actually worried about what we're doing to her, that would be mistaken. She's mildly irritated that on her skin she has a fever. Yet she is going to be alive long after we are gone. And I always say this, Mother Earth is constant. We are the variable. Whether we make it or not as a species is kind of up to us. So as you are Bluetoothing and you feel this peace, now you've taught yourself how to feel it, okay? Now, give yourself, once you kind of go through that for a few days, or maybe you're comfortable with doing it right away, the first most important thing to do is teach yourself how it feels to Bluetooth with the earth. So I would suggest just going through a week of just doing this particular exercise. So your body has if you want to call it a muscle memory or a cellular memory, your body it creates a cellular memory for how to Bluetooth with all of this and how to hook up to the internet or to the earthy-net through the body. Okay. Now, we were talking about the difference between a wire, a transmit tower, and something that didn't even need a tower. You touching the tree and the earth, that is going through the wire because you are the wire and you're touching that actual physical thing that is attached to the earth. You are hardwired. Okay. So after you go through that episode and that ability to teach yourself that, the next step is once you get that down and how that feels in your body to open that up and to feel it, your next step is to begin to send out a signal. Well, actually, no, they're backing me up, is to receive a signal. Sending is next. I jumped the gun. So say the next week you're out there, you got your hand on the tree, you're doing your exercise, you're doing the breathing, you're listening, all these things. Now you're going to ask the tree, what do you have for me? That's all you're going to say. What do you have for me? And just remember, this is going to come through the heart chakra. Now, what you're really asking is the universe, what do you have for me? And the tree is just a place to plug in the USB port. But when you say to the tree, what do you have for me? Again, allow the feelings to come in, and they will be feelings. They will come through the heart chakra, most likely, or wherever your chakra is, it's activated by that. And allow those feelings to come in. And that's all you need to do is if it's peace, if it's happiness, if it's contentment, if it's elation, if it's, oh man, I feel like there's a heaviness out there that maybe I could, put something beautiful back out to counteract. Whatever you're feeling, just allow it to come in. Now, if you are inspired to respond to that feeling, then allow that feeling to well up in that heart chakra, and you just send it right through your feet and right through your hand into the tree and into the ground. And maybe you're feeling a sadness in all the world, but you know it's going to be better, so you're putting love in that tree. I'm just giving you examples. You follow whatever is right for you in this. However, you're learning how it feels in your body. Does that make sense? To communicate in this way. That's really the overarching point of all that exercise is how does it feel in your body? To send and receive. Receive first and then send. Because we're also taught that we have to give. And one of the things that we don't understand is that we are also here to receive. So that's the hardwired version. Now we can kind of step up to the cell tower version. Once we kind of understand what that connective feeling feels like, we don't necessarily have to be touching a tree or be barefoot on the earth, although that makes it way easier to do this. Honest to God, it does. However, you don't have to. Say you live in a high-rise in New York City or in Chicago, and you can't just run right out and get yourself a tree and a plot of grass. That's harder. So once you teach yourself what that feels like, you can also do this if you're coastal by going and standing in water up to about mid-shin, and you can do the same exercise. If you really want to get into it, you can drag a lawn chair out where you can have your feet and your hands in the water, and just sit and do this same exact exercise. Water connects us to all things. So say you're in a high rise. And once you understand what it feels like to open that up in your body, that channel, that Bluetooth, then say you're sitting on the side of your bed or outside on your balcony, and you close your eyes and you let your brain listen and you give it something to do. That muscle memory, that cellular memory, especially when you go in and you say, I'm going to Bluetooth to all that is. You can open up that heart chakra and you will be able to draw to you the feeling around you. And this may take a little practice to go from the hardwired version to the sitting on your bed version. So don't be hard on yourself if it takes a minute. Yet opening up that heart chakra to just draw all that energy in. And now we get to put the crown chakra in there. So the crown chakra, as you open it up, acts like your hand and your feet on the tree. And that goes straight up like a radio tower, right up to source. And that is tapping that quantum field, which we're doing with the tree and the ground, but they want me to go in this order, in a different way. And so you can begin to draw through the air. Once your cells know what the impulse feels like and what you're looking for, you can do the same thing. What does the world feel like today? What does the world need in it? Can I feel what's coming in the future? Can I put something else out there that's powerful, that will help and heal others? Okay? Then we go to the next phase of understanding this, and I'm kind of jumping over the cell tower portion just a touch because I think we all have the concept at this point. What we're really dealing with here is the quantum field. And the quantum field is the field that connects all things. It is between all matter. There is no such thing as time in the quantum universe. It's just a giant interconnected web of communication and vibration. And that vibration is like the little jellyfish we were talking about with their little phalanges in the water. That vibration that their little feet make, that's so tiny that science can't even hardly pick it up. that is felt through the water to other jellyfish. When we open up our Bluetooth capacity, we open up our router and our soul and our spirit, and our cells understand that we are transmitting and receiving, we all of a sudden hook right up to the entire known multiverse. You see why they went in this order? And when we are hooked up to that multiverse, we can send grand messages. You know, when you watch a movie and it's a space movie and they're going through a wormhole and all the light is flashing by like the Millennium Falcon and they've jumped to hyperspace, or if you're watching Star Trek, they've gone and engaged the warp drive and they're flying through space and it's amazing and all of those streaks happen. We can do that at any time within each cell that we have. We can connect to a giant web that connects all things. And the only thing that disconnects us from that is fear. If we start getting afraid, we just imagine being part of the whole quantum multiverse and all of a sudden just sucking right back down to you on the side of your bed. That pulls us right in ourselves. And you'll feel that fear as a gross pit in your stomach, okay? Or real low down in that solar plexus area. So when you're thinking and meditating and your cells are looking for that open, connected space, once you've become accustomed, is the word I would use, to sending and receiving on that level of the cell tower without having to necessarily touch a tree. And if you want to touch a tree, do that too. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you're better or worse at this. The reason I'm talking about this is because we can contact other people through this mechanism. We can send and receive messages to others, to the whole planet. There are people who understand this quantum technology who are trying to use it for not good things. And they're trying to put agenda out there through people who think of it as a form of prayer. They're trying to get out there and flood this quantum universe with their agenda. And unfortunately, the quantum field doesn't really respond as well to that as it does to love. So why am I talking about this? Because, gang, we are going to lose access to the internet that we have right now. We're going to lose access to a free internet in just a couple of years. And again, I'm not trying to freak anybody out. We don't need to be freaked out because the internet was created in the image of what we are capable of. Please hear me when I say that. We made the internet. We made it in our image. It doesn't do something we can't do. It only does a fraction of what we're wired to do. Are you hearing that? I mean, you go back to religious texts. It talks about God that created man. And, you know, if you look at the Christian Bible, there's kind of a somewhat jacked up, misinterpreted from the point of language version of this, saying that God created man in his own image. And actually, if you look up the Hebrew word that got later translated to the English word image, it meant impression, that creation created humankind, human beings, in its own impression, with its own aptitudes. It impressed into it everything that it already was and made it into a different form. Okay? Whether a person believes in God or not, you can look at that in science as well. So here we create the internet. Okay? We created it in our image. We created it in our impression of what we are capable of in order to teach us. It's a tool, gang. It's here to teach us how to Bluetooth together through this incredible ability that we have to go online with our internalized router and send and receive messages. And we must teach the mind and the body what that feels like to receive those messages. Because we're very used to processing everything through an executive center, through that prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex's job is to prioritize signals, right? So it's trying to prioritize everything. Yet this comes through the heart. And our heart has really fascinating cells in it that are the same type of cells that we have in the brain. Our heart literally has a brain. And our heart and our brain communicate all the time. Yet our heart and our prefrontal cortex don't communicate as much as our heart and our limbic system. And that's the center portion of our brain where we receive and send messages. Our executive center, our prefrontal cortex, its whole job is to aggregate information and to choose what's best for us in that moment. And thank God we have that. Yet if I had to assign an astrological sign to parts of our brain, our prefrontal cortex is a Virgo. It is on every detail. It is filing everything. It is irritated if we step outside of the way that it's the most efficient. And it cannot figure out why we waste so much time doing stupid crap. It's a Virgo. It's like, what is wrong with the rest of this world and this brain? God, people. Our limbic system is more a Pisces. It's like, hey, man, we're going to flow with this and we're going to go with this and we're going to do whatever it is that works best for the whole. So and the funny thing is that Virgo and Pisces are completely opposite signs on the zodiac, which means that they share different strengths, but the same weaknesses. Isn't that interesting? I have a ton of Virgo friends. Oh my God. And so I'm a Pisces. So that limbic system is like, let's just flow with it, baby. Let's just go with it. Come on. Peace, love, and harmony. And there's our prefrontal cortex going, well, that's all fine and dandy, but who's going to pay the bills, you happy asshat? So there's this fight with our brain. But we're made that way for a reason. So if we can balance both of those aspects, we are golden, right? So going back to using our soul as a router, when we open up and we just figure out how we can train the body to attach to that quantum web, and it's sometimes helpful for our prefrontal cortex to have a visual because it gets really lost in this. It needs its instructions by God. So give it maybe a visual of a web that goes through all of outer space and multi-dimensions and whatever. And then you have the opportunity to pick one person that you want to talk to. We don't think twice about picking up our phone, looking through the directory, finding our bestie, and texting that person. We don't think twice about it. We don't say, oh God, they won't get this text, or oh God, what if the technology fails? No! We just do it, man. We just do it because we don't question it. So once you get to the point of allowing your body to understand how it feels to send and receive messages, and you can, I don't want to say test yourself, that's not the right word, yet you can audit or survey this process by asking yourself, whether you're touching the tree or you're just sitting on the bed with that open crown chakra and open heart chakra, letting your router access the airwaves, okay? And other human beings are the antenna that you're sending it off of. Maybe what you're doing is saying, please, I'm going out to retrieve feelings of how my mom is doing today, or how my sister, or how my best friend is doing today. And I'm just going to openly receive all this information back. And you will receive an emotional response back if you are open to it. And then if you need to, quote, test that to show yourself that yes, indeed, your router is working and it's hitting all its pings and pins, maybe you can call your best friend and say, hey, you were on my mind a few minutes ago and I'm really feeling like you're kind of sad. Are you sad? And remember, our first American response that's programmed in is, oh, no, I'm fine. How about you? I just kind of, are you sure you're not kind of just thoughtful or melancholy about something? Nothing in there, huh? Not a thing. Just because that person doesn't necessarily admit it doesn't mean it's not maybe percolating. Yet this is just one way to show yourself that you're receiving signals that are, quote, accurate or actually on the Bluetooth quantum level. And that's a really, really wide brushstroke. You can also say, wow, something feels really happy. I feel like something really cool happened with your work. And your friend might be like, wow, shut up. Yeah, I just got notified that I'm getting a raise, or, So there's many ways to do it, but I think you get the picture. And I'm just skipping on the mountain peaks. I'm hopping from mountain peak to mountain peak of very vast concepts. So you can start practicing this and understand that we can communicate with each other telepathically. So once you get into this quantum level, pick that one person and begin to send them Not in a forced way. Relax, open up, visualize that one person out there. Send them love, send them openness, send them compassion, send them beautiful strength, and just watch what happens. Because really, if you really want to know how this works, this is how we call in ETs to the world. Look up Dr. Stephen Greer's work in Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. We get out there, we relax the body, we use the earth as a giant Bluetooth booster. We use our soul as the router mechanism. The more energy we draw in through the body, the wider the Bluetooth signal gets, the wider our range becomes. And we're able to hear at that 44.1K sample rate, everything below it. We're not just limiting ourselves to the lowest or slowest vibration, which is fear, which is limitation. Those are the first rungs, I guess, of communication you might run into in the quantum field. Because most people are not broadcasting or receiving consciously past a few feet outside of themselves. But if you go to that really high stratospheric level like a satellite and you're broadcasting and receiving there, you're picking up everybody else on that high frequency, but you're also picking up all the babies below who are freaking out because they can't pay their bills, okay? You're picking up all the fear frequency too. So this is why a lot of empaths don't like this practice. They're like, you're out of your mind. You want me to Bluetooth to the world. What in God's green acre kind of sadist are you? I don't want to feel all that. Yet, gang, think about it. If I am hooking my own router up to that quantum level of being able to feel the whole planet and sense everybody, and all these little bitty pings on the surface of the planet are fear, 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 and I'm up here and I'm not saying I'm up here, I'm just giving you an example, okay? Say we're all up in that satellite level. Then we are the ones that have the broadcast capacity to just shower those little fear, 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 fear with love. It's okay, man. It's all good. We're going to get through this. We got this. And you will watch, if you're really conscious of this, you'll watch all of those little bright lights on the earth that are burning with that red hot fear dot. They kind of go to orange. And they kind of go to yellow, and then they go to white, and they don't even know why. Because our DNA is literally programmed to seek that love vibration first, because on the love vibration, on the compassion vibration, on the interconnected vibration, only wellness transfers itself through space and time. Only love transfers itself through space and time. We call it love, but we don't even know the capacity of that particle of energy. We call it love. But it's not an intellectual thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a spiritual thing. And only that wellness and well-being surpasses space-time. So even though the Nazis literally had mystics in rooms trying to meditate and affect that quantum field, they knew this technology way back when. They were trying to meditate people's hearts shutting down in the field, and they were trying to put negative stuff out there. That'll sort of flow through the quantum field a little, but it generally finds like attracts like in the spiritual universe. So it goes back and finds people that are in that much fear. And generally it's the people who are putting it out there in the first place. So talk about putting a boomerang out there that you're hoping hits somebody else and comes right around and whacks your head off from the back. And you're like, well, what happened there? That's what happens with the negativity that we try to put out, because the system is wired to be conductive of mutual growth, mutual connection, and mutual understanding. Why am I talking about all this? Because we don't actually need the internet. We can link right up to that quantum system, and we can know what's going on in the news. We can see not just what the headlines are, not just what the media has controlled for our ingesting here in America, but we can actually see what's going on. We don't just see the people showing up with their guns in the Capitol and screaming and yelling, and, of course we'll have an emotional response to that or not. Yet we'll see why they're doing that. And we'll be able to send them through this quantum web. Love. And the funny thing, and I'm not saying we need to just go hug the guy with the gun. I'm saying the compassion that this person is drowning in fear. Oh my God, man, you don't have to be so freaked out. Come join the party. The beer's over here. What are you doing, dude? Just the coffee is here. The all-you-can-eat dessert buffet that won't give you diabetes is right here. Come join us in this. So this is why it's important that we learn to get off the internet. Now, I'm not saying you have to get off it entirely. I mean, obviously, it's a major communication tool for the world. Yet think about how that fear hits you. Oh my God, what would that mean? I wouldn't be connected with family, friends. I'd be disconnected. And I'm calling BS on that. No, you won't be. I'm going to say it again. We have created the internet in our own impression. It can only do a portion of what we can do as human beings. And we've created it to teach us what we're capable of. So begin to engage your body. Begin to learn what it feels like to feel those cells go into that place of opening up, where that crown chakra opens, where that heart opens. Begin to give yourself enough time to feel that. What you're going to recognize is you're not separate from anything. And what Dr. Stephen Greer talks about is these aliens come and see us when we get on that quantum frequency when we Bluetooth, and we just lock up to that quantum field and we send out, hey, oh my God, it's so exciting to be part of the universe. I just want to give you a hug and learn and transcend. What's up, man? That's when they come, because they can also feel that. And their technologies, it's not of the mind. Their technologies run on energetic impulse. That's why they can go across billions, zillions of miles. They bend space-time because their quantum technologies are interfaced with their consciousness. And here we are still thinking we need to go tap, 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 tap on a phone to do anything. So before we all decide we're completely idiotic as a species, I want to plant this in your field of thought before I let you go today. We are learning at such an accelerated pace. It's insane. And this is one of the reasons why people are fearful and crispy and whatever. And I'm not asking you not to have your convictions. I'm not asking you to not have an emotional response when you see somebody do something that you consider horrific. Like, hey, a couple of white guys hunting down an African-American guy just for fun. That is horrific. And in my understanding of the universe, that is horrific, because my lens might be very different from those people's lens. And they are acting out their fear in a way that's tangible for them. And I'm never excusing hunting people down. I'm simply saying their process is very different than mine. And I'm going to have an emotional reaction to that, because I am not a saint. I am not an angel. I am a person. Yet I know that through my emotional reaction, I can go ahead and have that, yet I need to ask it on the other side. God, what is that teaching me about me? And about how I wish the world was maybe more kind? So what do I do? Well, instead of just raging and being angry, which I might do for a minute, again, human, then setting into that quantum place to be able to say, those people are doing that because they are afraid on a base level. They feel out of control and they feel afraid. So at that point, it becomes very important for me to go into that place in the quantum field. What if I could sit down and talk to those folks? I'm not even going to say their names, who chased down that poor African-American man. What if I could actually sit down and talk with their hearts and say, what in the ever-loving hell was that about? And maybe their hearts could actually have a conversation with me back. And what if we, as a species, can connect with each other, my higher self with their higher self? And what if we can unburden our fears in that quantum area so that we can all feel and learn and grow and let go of the desperation that causes us to suck our own signal 3 feet in from ourselves like a little compressed pod of woe and run around and kill people? What if our higher selves actually are supposed to be chatting with one another, and that's why we're on this giant electromagnetic antenna called the Mother Earth? And what if that's what our off-world friends are waiting for? Is for us to be aware that we are not just this blind, lonely, strange thing wandering through the earth, disconnected from all things. And what if all those what ifs aren't what ifs? Because that's what's going on. So I am telling you today to begin to believe in your base genetics again, please. As much as you believe in your cell phone and technology, please believe in your base design. Because to believe means to assign willingness. And if you can assign willingness to your ability to open up this massive router in yourself and begin to just, go on your own pace. Just go on your own pace to connection to the earth, to other people. Maybe your calling isn't to connect to the whole world. That's my big fat thing. So I'm not going to impose that on you. Maybe your calling is to connect to the planet and send the Great Mother healing and to receive healing from the Great Mother. This planet has so much healing electromagnetic energy that it wants to give to all of us. And we keep turning off our damn routers. Literally. I guarantee you, if somebody was trying to give you the lottery numbers, you would take them. The earth is trying to give us the lottery vibration in our body to be able to open up genetic code for us that not only allows us to telepathically connect to the whole world and to other people we care about and to trust that telepathic connection, yet we are being asked to accept healing and all kinds of other things. And I'm not going to get into that in this podcast because we're just talking about how to open up our own router and open up our telepathy, open up our empathy, be able to affect things all over the world that we never thought we'd have the ability to affect because we've assigned away that ability to do that to presidents and world leaders and priests and mystics and everything. And hey, we are all part of this solution. I'm doing my part today. You get to do your part. I'm just one little beanie down here. I'm just one little noodle head, okay? We all are bringing together what we're designed to do. So have fun with this next week. Understand that you can telepathically communicate with your besties. Get your besties online. And if you even want to have a little group where everybody gets together in your backyard and everybody gets to go sit in a lawn chair and sit with their bare feet in the grass, and you just take turns sending beautiful feelings to one another all the way through and connecting to your small group that you understand that you're deeply connected to anyway, that's another great way to teach the body how to recognize the warmth and the feeling that comes through that heart chakra and through the crown. You've got to allow your body to teach you what it feels like to send and receive. Okay? And once you do that, the sky, the multiverse is the limit. And just understand that you do have protection through all of this. There's some school of thoughts out there on the intranets that talk about don't open yourself up to everything because everything will come to you. Well, yes and no. We've talked about the fact that if you're broadcasting from space, so to speak, you're going to pick up all the broadcasts coming up off the earth, even folks who are broadcasting at 1.2 kilohertz. If you're broadcasting at the big spectrum, you're going to pick it all up. However, just because you feel it doesn't mean you are it. Okay, I can touch a bug and I'm not a bug. I can touch a slimy jellyfish and I'm not a slimy jellyfish. So just because we can sample it doesn't mean that it has to take us over. Yet we are so disempowered at this point as a species that when we feel our perimeter alarm go off with what we feel are threatening energies, we panic, right? We freak right out. We're like, oh my God, it's going to take me over. And that's not true. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's going to eat you alive. So sometimes if I'm going to tell you how to protect yourself from a bear, I need to talk about bears. So if you feel some of that fear, it doesn't mean that you are the fear. It means you are observing it. Yet did you know, and this is what the big jazz hands ending to this podcast, did you know that flooding that quantum field with love through prayer or meditation or good vibes or good thoughts or however you put that in your brain, so that the Virgo that is your prefrontal cortex can categorize it in a way that makes sense to you, okay? However you do that, did you know that it only takes one person pinging on that grid with pure love and pure intention and just love and just goodness? One person affects up to 22,000 other people. If 1% of our population could just connect up and enjoy universe and enjoy nature and send love for what is out into the planet every day, it doesn't even have to be specific. It can just be love for what is. Go to the beach and be filled with that moment of, oh my God, the earth is so amazing. Flood the whole quantum field with it. If 1% of us did this, it would affect the entire planet, because we are Bluetoothed together. We are not separate. So I'm going to leave you with that. Please, please go experience this, experiment with this. We don't need the internet because we are the internet. Okay? We're it. We are a telepathic species that is constantly in communication with one another. So go experience this. Go see what this feels like. And just embrace this connection, because this is how we're going to change the world. All right. I will see you next podcast. Go connect.